People in finance will think something legitimate when it gets to a certain dollar level. It's like, if it's under 200 million, I don't care. If you get above 200 to 500 million, all of a sudden I'm interested. They don't look at what's actually going on. They only look at, has somebody else put money into it? It's that herd mentality that humans have. Somebody must have put money into it. It's got a lot of money. It must be legit. Somebody somewhere along the way has vetted this out, done their homework. And apparently nobody did with FTX.
Welcome to Gold Silver Pros. Searching for the best precious metals deal? Shop with our trusted partner, Ark Silver. Access special deals on silver, gold, and platinum through our website, or call 307-264-9441.
Hey everybody, this is Rob Kientz of GoldSilverPros.com. I'm here with two returning friends and guests of the program, Jim Forsythe of Citizens for Sound Money and Silverback Precious Metals, and Ian Everard, who you see every week on the weekly market wrap that we put out on Sunday with Ark Silver. Gentlemen, how are you doing today?
Great, thanks, Rob, and you?
Doing very well. It's about a week before Thanksgiving. Of course, we're recording this a week at a time. This will come out over Thanksgiving for you guys to have content, because, you know, we always provide content and we want you to have something to kind of chew on over the weekend. That being said, there's a whole lot going on. We were talking about this before the show. What do we even talk about? And I think, Ian, I'm going to lead off with you. And one of the comments you made was, it's like, I would describe it as quiet before the storm, but you kind of said like something's going on, like it's too quiet almost. And I was watching this, you know, this war movie over the weekend, All Quiet on the Western Front. And it kind of reminds me of that lead up where, you know, what's the next shoe to drop? What's the next thing to fall? And it led to the Ukraine, and also kind of roundabout way to FTX. And we're connecting those two dots together, which I think maybe the first time people are doing this. I haven't seen a lot of people do this, but I think it's an interesting topic to discuss. So what's your view there, Ian, on, just give us your views on Russia, Ukraine, and then let's talk about the connection, the potential connection to FTX as well.
Yeah, I guess going back to FTX, it's just the sheer arrogance of the people concerned. They don't even seem to bother even to hide what they're doing anymore. Whether that's because they're incompetent at being criminal, I'm not sure. But you look at what SBF, as he likes to call himself, he was so close to pulling it off. If his gamble using that 10 billion that he borrowed to send to Alameda Research, if that had played off, he could have made 20, 30 billion, and then he could have put the 10 back, and he would have been established in the system, entrenched, absolutely entrenched, which is concerning when you have donors of that size to one party, whatever flavor of party you are. But to me, it stinks that you can have this much wealth going to promote individual parties, and for very selfish reasons. I don't know, never had a discussion face to face with him, probably never will, but what was he aiming to achieve by these donations? What was it, benevolent gifting for an ideological position, or was it to get favor? I mean, his dad is a lawyer, isn't he? Who worked out that lobbying gets you what you want. So was he taking the leaf out of his dad's book? It's all incredibly slimy.
So this is what you're talking about, Ian, and there are a couple of websites covering this. Of course, you're never going to see it on the mainstream media. Here at the Gateway Pundit, also on Dr. Farrell's site, 𝙂𝙊𝙇𝘿, tens of billions of US dollars were transferred to Ukraine, and then using FTX cryptocurrency, the funds were laundered back to Democrats in the US. So it appears as though, and getting back to what you said in terms of campaign contributions, it appears as though FTX was used as a way to get money back into those contributions that were funded by the American taxpayer. Because I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, we're talking about funds that were approved during this administration for sending over to Ukraine for things like war aid, medicine, weapons, all that kind of stuff for the Russia-Ukraine. And now what we're doing is we seem to be connecting that money and FTX fiasco together, and how the Democrats use that to fund their campaign. Is that, am I understanding that correctly?
That's what it looks like, doesn't it? No one's denying it. but it seems like our lame media will not investigate it rigorously. It seems to be just acceptable because it's on their side. If their side is cheating, lying, and stealing, they ignore it. Yeah.
And we're not stating this as fact, by the way. This is just being reported by a couple of different places, and it's using information out there to kind of put together the scenario. And this is a scenario I've highlighted. Again, not confirmed, but we think that's maybe what happened. Jim, I want to get your take on this. Does it surprise you at all, this type of scheme? And does it surprise you at all that the cryptocurrencies would be used for this type of money laundering? And before you answer that, I want to point out that everything that may be happening in the cryptos has been enabled by the dollar system. The cryptos and the way that they're being used in Ponzi would not exist if not for the fiat dollar. I just want to make that clear. So is FTX is it part of the end of the dollar system? Or why are the cryptos now being used in money laundering or these types of behind the scenes types of things? Why are we using the crypto exchanges now?
Well, I agree with the first thing. What you said is, that this was kind of enabled by the fiat system. If you look at how this whole system worked, there was a lot of leverage involved, et cetera. It's the very antithesis of what most people talk about when they talk about there's a finite set of tokens, et cetera. And instead they're basically leveraging things like crazy to kind of pump the values up. I wouldn't necessarily look at this as much a crypto story than, a corruption with any corporation. I mean, absent crypto, there's other ways to funnel the money around. But does it surprise me? Unfortunately, not really. But if you look at all the connections, it's pretty crazy. I mean, with Hunter Biden, then there's Nancy Pelosi's son had connections over there, made a lot of money over there. As somebody I actually went to school with, and now this, it's the corruption is just getting really completely out of hand. And I wouldn't say this is like people talking about all these donations going to the Democratic Party. It's not necessarily just about the Democratic Party, but right. Also just the insiders, the elite. Somebody like Lindsey Graham, I would count amongst that same contingent.
Yeah, essentially what we're saying is it's just corruption of government. We're not picking on any one party. I'm a libertarian. Yeah. I don't belong to red or blue team, but they are the party in office. It did happen on their watch. There are these connections being drawn. And, would this happen in the other? Probably. Whatever ruling party is there, I think at this point is probably corrupted by the money. I mean, that's what I see. I don't know that I have a whole lot of faith at the top of the U.S. political system at the federal level that I would just assume anybody's really honest. Maybe some are. But I think you have to kind of look at the political system now with a little bit of a jaundiced eye. And again, I tie that back to the dollar. If we weren't in this dollar system that enabled all this garbage and all these Ponzi schemes, then maybe perhaps we would have had a different scenario. Maybe that's too simplistic on my part. But I tie it all back to the dollar. I think the dollar and the printing of the dollar, now the destruction of the dollar, is leading to all these things that we're seeing. And it seems as though there's just more and more scandals coming out. I didn't know if you guys had an opinion on that.
Yeah, and I did a tweet about this. No amount of regulation, like everybody's crying out for regulation of crypto now, right? But absent, zero interest rate policies and the fiat system, this kind of thing really couldn't have happened, or certainly not happened at that scale. This is, it's just like the great financial crisis and all the crazy, no loan, no doc, no job, right. No get a mortgage. It's the inevitable result of this zero interest rate policy and artificial creation of money is that you get corruption like this.
Yeah, I'd like to point out for those who think regulation can solve everything, and I'm a former auditor, so I had to understand the regulations and audit to them. And I was in compliance and risk management roles for a long time. I had to understand a lot of different laws. My experience with the regulation is it means well, but it creates this burden upon companies to adhere. But in a lot of cases, the decisions made about whether or not something is okay or not are made by humans like myself as an auditor or a management team that don't necessarily adhere to the spirit of what that regulation is. And so regulations in and of themselves aren't going to solve these types of issues. The other point I'd like to make, a lot of the regulations put out there is not against collusion. It's against single party controls or single point of failure control. Sarbanes-Oxley is an example of that. If you get collusion, good luck with Sarbanes-Oxley. I mean, you could still find it, but there are ways to get around those controls. And a lot of regulations basically are just, they still depend upon honesty in the system. They still depend upon honest people. And at the end of the day, the big point is, I don't care what you have on paper in terms of rules. If you don't have honest people, you're not going to have an honest system. And I think we're seeing that. I think we're seeing that with the cryptos right now as well.
And if you don't have honest money, you'll have dishonest people as well.
Yeah. And that's where we tie it back to the dollar, because we haven't had an honest money. We haven't had an honest Congress, president, political system. And it appears that is expanding out into more of a worldwide sort of contagion, because now you're drawing in companies from Europe, and how many other people had to either look the other way or be party to that for that actually to occur. It had to be a lot of people involved. I mean, we're talking a lot of money, and we're talking running it through another country in a war scenario and then getting it back. And how do people not notice that, and who's complicit? There are going to be a lot of people in Ukraine that are complicit with that as well, I would imagine.
Yeah. The other thing about regulation, I think it gives a false sense of security. I mean, how many people have been ripped off with the stock market that's heavily regulated? It happens all the time.
It does. And again, going back to Sarbanes-Oxley, even if there's a good, solid audit report from a solid Big Four or even a reputable, one of the smaller reputable audit firms, I don't necessarily assume the financial statements are correct, because auditors are great, but you have limited resources and you have all sorts of ways that those regulations don't look for bad stuff. And I don't want to get into all that, but I'll just say that regulations by themselves and audit is not the be all end all. I think that we need honesty in the system. Ian, what's your view on, you kind of had the comment before that I said before, it appears as though a lot of stuff's going on. Is that like a sixth sense sort of thing where you just feel that way, or are you putting together what's going on in the world, and do you have like a thesis about what you think comes next?
Well, we could extrapolate what happened with FTX.
Mm-hmm.
He saw a model. He's no genius. He just copied what our banking system is doing.
That was my point exactly.
They take deposits.
Isn't this just the
and then they gamble
all
it
over again?
Yeah, and if they win, the gains are private, and if they lose, the losses are socialized. The losses are spread out evenly amongst all of us. He was just copying what he saw. I think he was being positioned, and I'll repeat what I said earlier, that if he'd got away with it, none of this would have come out. He would have been a genius, and somehow he'd managed to make another 20 billion. And he was being hailed, wasn't he? As the new JP Morgan, the new this, the new that. I mean, was it that Shark Tank guy, Kevin O'Leary? I mean, he must feel actually, a Muppet is an insult to a Muppet. I mean, I don't know, Muppet, Fraggle Rock, what's, it's like, they fell for it.
One thing I notice about people in finance, I've been in finance for a long time, watching it, had licenses way back when. People in finance will think something legitimate when it gets to a certain dollar level. It's like, if it's under 200 million, I don't care. If you get above 200 to 500 million, all of a sudden I'm interested. They don't look at what's actually going on. They only look at, has somebody else put money into it? It's that herd mentality that humans have. Somebody must have put money into it. It's got a lot of money. It must be legit. Somebody somewhere along the way has vetted this out, done their homework. And apparently nobody did with FTX.
Yeah, I mean, history is riddled, isn't it? You had the Scottish guy, John Law, who took over France, took over ownership of made all that, the livre, all that fake fiat rubbish. So yeah, it's just whether you're brazen enough, got enough balls to go ahead and do it and ignore, and I guess maybe there's some sort of ADH or something, I don't know, some sort of, most humans have a check. No, I best not do that. I'm probably going to get caught. I won't do that.
You're talking about like
a lack of risk.
Who don't have that thing in their brain.
Yeah, lack of risk. I mean, we could circle this back to Putin, couldn't we, really? Because his handlers always said he's a risk to the KGB because he has no perception of danger. I mean, when he single-handedly, didn't he, held off the takeover of the East German embassy, I think, whilst burning all the documents. He was burning them so fiercely, the stove split. He broke the furnace. He literally single-handedly was destroying all of the incriminating evidence. He just didn't perceive risk. And so maybe that's these people, you know, maybe if we could have a look, you know, like Bernie Madoff. I mean, obviously, I think this is even on a greater scale, isn't it, than off that Madoff scheme. But yeah, he just saw what the big banks are doing, and I think he emulated it and just accelerated it, just nearly got away with it. You know, and I think probably the plan was all along there. If it didn't work, very convenient. Now the government, the banks can beat up on crypto. I don't like crypto. I don't understand crypto, but I respect people who do like it and do understand it. And you know, so now it's pretty well killed it. So that's convenient, isn't it? That's a convenient tool for the powers that be. That's it. Crypto's gone. It's wiped out the competition. I mean, what institution is going to go into it now for a year, 2 years, 3 years? No one's going to touch it now.
So Rob, you said, I think you said, like no one saw this coming. It's actually not true. I mean, I've seen a lot of tweets from people like Larry Lepard where he retweeted something from August saying like, this is a scam, watch out, kind of thing. Right. People did see it. It was all there. It just, nobody wanted to listen because they were making money. And politicians certainly didn't want to listen because they were getting donations.
Yeah. And this is a warning I want to give to everybody, just public service announcement, Rob, here. When you get into finance, just assume, and I've said it 100 times, I'll say it again, if you sit down at the poker table, you don't know who the loser is, you're the loser. In finance, if you don't know who the loser, you're it. Yeah. You have to be super careful when you get into the world of finance. Schemes have been running in finance for thousands of years. And the point I made on Twitter about SBF was, yeah, he's a kid. I made the point he didn't really know what he had, not absolving him of responsibility, but think about this. He's a product of the system. He grew up in a world that was corrupt. And he's just some kid, you know, if he could have had a legitimate job and the jobs were great for the millennial and Gen Zers and everything was great, and we had set up society where everybody could be honest, we would be honest. People turn to this because they have no choice. Now, did he take it way to an extreme? Sure. Was he part of a big scam? Yeah. Should he go to jail? For sure. But at the end of the day, people look at the individual and the individual thing. And the point I'm trying to make is look at the big picture. Look at who fostered that. Look at the culture we brought him up in. And it's not just the Bernie Madoffs. Now we got the younger ones doing it. And they're doing it with their vehicle of choice, the cryptos. It's no different than Bernie Madoff doing it with investment funds or Perth Mint doing it with gold and silver. It's all the same. And so the bigger point, I think, and I'd like to get your view on this, is we need to look at the system itself. The system is rotten. And we can sit there and chase the Madoffs of the world, and we can go chase the drug smugglers. But at the end of the day, if you don't address the core root of the problem, we're just chasing our tails on all of this other stuff. And I would even extend that to stuff like border security and all of that. A lot of those problems get solved when you have an honest system. And we don't have an honest system.
No, I agree. And actually, if you look at the parallels, Matt, the FTX stuff, I think, there was some stuff where like actually literally taking people's money, but the whole flywheel scheme of leveraging up, getting the value of the tokens up, repeat that over and over again, that does all work until the prices go down, right? And it's exactly like the housing market in the 2008 crisis. All those zero interest rates, loans, and all that stuff, that all worked fine as long as the prices kept going up. But then the moment that stopped, the whole thing fell apart. But that gets into like in the Money Game, a movie that you highlighted to me and that we invested in, is in the world of zero interest rates, like everything's value goes to infinite in the future or whatever. And so you get all these malinvestments and all these risk, and you can't get yield off of anything. So you wind up leveraging like crazy to try to get yield, and you just keep increasing your risk. I'm happy to be part of a, system of gold and silver that's just so incredibly boring, and like we were talking about that with Kinesis, is like, yeah, it's so boring. It's like 1-to-1. It's not leveraged. It's, plodding along. It pulls back 5-10% and everybody's upset. It's like, I welcome that boringness. Yeah, I think keeping your capital these days is the hard thing to do versus
yes.
outside.
We're an era of very high risk, and kind of pitch that back to you, Ian, for what Jim said. He said a 5% pullback, people get upset, but isn't that, first of all, that's normal. But second of all, isn't it better than everything else? It hasn't 2022 proven gold and silver's worth over just about everything else, at least in terms of like paper assets and digital assets and things that are more ethereal. It just seems to me like gold and silver, the physical asset, have done much better. Despite all the garbage that goes on in the derivative markets, it's still done better than everything else.
Yeah, I mean, America's had the privilege, isn't it, of multi-generations now, 50 years, where you could get return on capital. And just exactly what you said, Rob, people have forgotten about return of their capital.
That's right.
And there's going to be a lot of rude awakenings. People might be getting 5, 6, 7% on certificates of mass destruction and collateralize this and collateralize that. And, you know, the public didn't seem to learn anything about the 2008 crisis, that the banks will bundle up a whole load of crap and sell it to bag holders. That's what JP Morgan did in the lead up to the 30s crash. They knew what they were selling were garbage. They packaged it up and they sold it on to all the little guys. So till the people wake up, and I'm trying to understand what is money, what is capital, and how you preserve it, how you protect it. It's greed still takes over, and it's a conditioning. So it doesn't even appear to greed. It seems to be a perceived right that you'll get return on capital.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't get return of your capital, that wipes you out. And I think I'm right in saying it's Warren Buffett's 3 rules, isn't it? First, don't lose your capital. Second, don't lose your capital. Third, don't lose your capital. Because
the ultimate value investor, but see, Warren understood value investing. He understood maintaining capital and growing slowly, and he did that through his whole career. You know, and look at where he ended up. Of course, he hit some jackpots along the way, but but that's how investing does work, right, Ian? Yeah,
it does. And if you learn about wealth cycles and you're prepared to play the long game, you'll end up a whole lot wealthier with a whole lot less stress along the way. But we're conditioned that you've got to get in here, make 10% there, make 20% there, take it out, put it here. We've got a whole, what's the word? We've got a whole cacophony of fiduciaries and advisors and finance people whose whole living is on getting people to place money here, place it there, do this with it, do that with it. And their whole living depends on volatility. Fiduciary, do people even deserve that name now? And a lot of fiduciaries don't even suggest to people, you could have 5, 10% in the precious metals. Well, then you're not acting in your client's best interests. It's been proven, isn't it? I mean, gold has beaten the S&P 500 over all time, and it will always beat the S&P 500 over the rest of the time. It's not a hard. The data is very simple when you look at it and you look at the big trends.
It is, and there's something to be said just for taking the winning horse that's been there for a long time. Or I guess maybe the better analogy is, the tortoise and the hare. You can be fast, but if you're not consistent, it doesn't really mean much. And I think this scenario and what we're going through right now, the financial depression, but also all the scandals, points back to man versus economic law. And I wanted to bring this back to you, Jim, for what you do for Citizens for Sound Money. I know that you understand natural economic law and natural limits. Aren't we bumping up against natural limits, and man keeps trying to press those limits, and Mother Nature just keeps kind of slapping him down, saying, sorry, it's the way the universe works, man. You're a part of this, but you don't have the power to change nature. Does natural economic law come into play here? Are we seeing the hard limits of that and people bumping up against it, and, in nature saying, yeah, you're done here?
Yeah, I mean, the way fiat's been tried throughout history and has always failed. Mm-hmm. It takes time to resolve, but it does always fail. And it's like people are trying to be alchemists, turn paper into gold, and it just doesn't work. And you can fool people for a while. You can do things like, get countries to agree to only sell oil for dollars and stuff like that, to create a petrodollar backing. But in the end, it will come apart. And God's money will return to the forefront.
So I want you guys to also give an update on what you're doing. So we've had you on the show several times. You guys are providing liquidity for silver to the market at lower premiums, basically, and can get anywhere. And you're doing it, in different ways. You guys have teamed up, but you have your own operations. And you're doing it in such a way that perhaps when the rest of these conventional sources of silver dry up, you guys may have some inventory. So we'll start with you, Jim. Why Silverback Precious Metals, and what do you guys do?
Yeah, so Silverback Precious Metals was founded by David Holland primarily. I came along and we're the managing partners. But the whole idea was to slice up these COMEX bars as a way to make sure premiums stay low. It's something that can scale up with, so our goal was don't increase premiums. If there's more demand, simply increase our volume. But that's led us down the path of, we have to do something with the shavings. So we started pouring them. Then we started to get orders for poured products. And it's like, that's a lot of work. So then I wound up getting vacuum casting equipment. And now we're doing about 5,000 ounces a week in vacuum cast, 10-ounce bars and rounds. And then we also wound up going down the path of doing wholesale versus retail. And that kind of rose us to the level where we thought we could help Kinesis when they launched their physical mint. And Kinesis is a great partner for us because, they've got their own refinery. They're developing relationships with miners, so it's new capacity. And, their goal similar to ours is, low premium, high volume, monetary use of these metals versus
get it circulating through the system. You can't do that when you're dealing with 25% premiums, right? People aren't going to buy it. You need a low cost, low premium incentivized system to get people to use it.
Yep. So that's where we're at today, and the growth over the last month or two has been incredible. Sold more in a couple of weeks than in the previous year. We just hit magic number bar 69 today. It's been 6 bars since Saturday. Do a couple more tomorrow, probably 2 or 3. Because it's like 5 bars per week for casting, but then also slicing ads on top of that.
Ian, what about you? I know you started Ark Silver a couple of years ago now. We connected at New Orleans about a year ago. Is it a year ago or 2 years ago now? In any case, we all kind of got introduced.
Actually.
Yeah, we all kind of got introduced to each other. And you're doing similar to what Jim's doing, but a little bit different take on it. Can you explain what Ark Silver is?
Well, yeah, I mean, just to run back, I met Jim at last year's New Orleans Investment Conference, and I think pretty soon when he told me what he was doing, I think I told you, you're going to get very, very busy because these cycles happen. And I don't know if it's deliberate or just industry dysfunction, but there's a lack of the cure for high prices doesn't seem to work in the retail bullion trade. But Silverback are going to be a big part in that, in being able to keep low premiums when the system just seizes up. There just doesn't seem to be liquid supply, and then the premiums pump up, and for whatever reasons, I think there's a bit of profiteering goes on, and you can understand it. Some of the companies have had bad times, have a lot of overheads. So yeah, we started Ark Silver nearly 2.5 years ago because when I was talking to people about a lot of things we talk about, Rob, money, what is money, and central banking and the fraud that's going on in the banking system, it just kept leading me to precious metals. So that's why we started. And Silverback have been an amazing encouragement to see them grow. It gives me, because Jim will testify, this is hard work. If you knew what this path was, we probably would have done something else. No, okay, let someone else do it. It's not easy staying up late at night, working 7 days a week. You can't you can't always staff your weaknesses. And again, I'm going to flatter Jim again. I love his perseverance. I mean, he blows his gasket on his cast machine for the 8th time. What does he do? He fixes it again, and he gets back on. He gets back on with it, you know, and that's the true American grit. That's what I love about this nation. There's a core of hardworking people who will just get it done. So yeah, I'm drifting a bit. Yeah.
Well, get it done. Not only get it done, Ian, but also find solutions to problems. And you guys
exactly
have found solution to problem. You're doing it in different ways, but you're addressing the same issue. And that is getting honest, everyday, good Americans access to silver and gold to some extent, but to silver to protect them against financial calamity that's coming in a way that no one else is going to do. I mean, the big guys are going to do this. And I want to emphasize what you guys do every day. You put a lot of your own blood, sweat, and tears in this. And it's not like you guys are rolling over making billions of dollars. I mean, you have businesses, but your profit margins are low. Your objective is to get metal out. It's not your everyday bullion business. And that's what I wanted to emphasize. You guys are really doing this with the spirit of, we need to help people. And I think that's what's important here.
Yeah, and the definite bonus is I'm 100% fully persuaded where silver is going to go. It's going to go a lot further and faster than gold. So it's enabled me to build up my personal ounces a bit quicker than if I just stayed doing an ordinary construction job that I was doing. I've been able to accumulate. So that's my gain, is I've got access. I can get a few more ounces for my dollar.
Just become your own dealer, Ian, and there you go.
Yeah, yeah.
You got your supply.
Yeah.
So and Ian didn't mention he's been one of he's one of the first bar providers for us, and I went back to him this last week to get, because we had some casting issues with these Republic Mint bars, and so Ian is shipping some off to me for that, and then he plans on becoming our first, other than myself, become the first franchisee for Silverback, doing some slicing. So we're working on a feed mechanism that we can read. I have one, but we're working on one that we can go into production on and make multiple copies of, and get out to people like Ian to start sawing himself.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and we've both Jim and I have found now we're getting approached by people who are buying 1,000-ounce bars with the view to processing them into slices or cast products, and that's a great way if people can run to 1,000-ounce bar, or maybe even amongst a group of close friends. You can beat these crazy premiums. You don't have to do it straight away, but you can. So that gives people access now to even lower premium silver, and gets more ounces now, because it's the ounces that will get multiplied when silver moves, when gold moves, not the premium. I mean, the premium might go up. Say if the premium doubles, but silver's gone 10 times, you want your ounces to get multiplied.
Yeah, the trick is, Bob Coleman complains a lot about high premiums, and he's right to. Says like, avoid high premiums. Okay, but does that mean waiting for the premiums to come down? And
good question.
So now, premiums are lower now. They're coming down a little bit, but the silver price is like $2 or $3 higher, right? So the key is, how do you avoid the premiums while at the same time having exposure to silver? And Kinesis is a good way to do that. Take a position, Kinesis, PSLV, and then when premiums come down, you have a certain number of ounces, and now because the premiums are lower, you can pivot to physical at a much better ratio than when the premium. So that's the big thing I'd say is, like, it's one thing to complain about premiums, but okay, so how do you avoid them yet while still having exposure to silver? But I'm definitely of the camp that I don't care what the premiums are. If you have none, just go buy some.
Yes,
Get a position. If you're
exactly. Don't chop off the nose to spite your face, meaning don't worry about an extra couple of dollars of premium when, if the system collapses and you have none, then you have nothing, right? So don't worry so much about that. Just dive in and buy some, and at least get something in your portfolio, because at the end of the day, if it's the only thing that you have to exchange for bread and eggs, you're not going to care what premium you paid. You're gonna want, to get food to feed your kids and to pay your gas bill and stuff like that. And ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what the metals are there for. They're basically insurance against financial calamity, I would think.
Yeah, it's also the only insurance you can take against the financial repression we're under and the financial repression that's coming. It's private. Buy it.
Boy,
nobody
is it
knows
ever
you got
coming. Yeah.
you know, unrealized tax gains, that 89,000 more IRS agents. They're not going to sit twiddling their thumbs. Hopefully they've not put them on commission to motivate them. I don't know what sort of people they've recruited, but things are not going to get better for anybody who's in a position to pay tax.
Last question for you guys. We're going to be airing this on Thanksgiving, so it'll be a Thanksgiving Day edition. Your comments on Thanksgiving this year, and I mean that in light of what's going on. We've had all this negative news. I mean, just so much. I think the American people are drinking from the fire hose. There's just so much going on. But what do we have to be thankful for, I guess, as we wrap up the year?
Well, I'm incredibly thankful that we are still in a privileged position as Americans who hold dollars. We're in a privileged position that the dollar is overvalued against the precious metals, and the precious metals are artificially devalued. Yeah, I'm talking my book. I think that's the phrase. But I don't mind where you buy it from. Just please buy it. Good. Let me put out this appeal. Good people all over America. Just get a bit of silver and buy it for Christmas presents. Think about, instead of buying that pile of plastic in a cardboard box that is going to lose its appeal after about half an hour as soon as it's opened, you know, whatever it contains. Why don't you buy somebody an ounce of silver, or a 5-ounce bar, 10-ounce bar? The chances are they're going to keep it. They're not going to spend it. They'll keep it.
What about you, Jim? Any thoughts on Thanksgiving this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to be thankful for. These are difficult times we're living in, but like we did this interview with 𝙎𝙬𝙇𝘍 today, and it's so exciting to see so many market solutions coming up to you know, basically advance a new monetary system, a monetary system that's free enterprise. You know, companies like 𝙎𝙬𝙇𝘍, Kinesis, others. It's and then people like yourself, Ian. You know, the amount of leadership, the amount of people talking about this, and the attention that it's getting is superb. It's a problem that's been there for a long time. It's just now we're that much closer to a resolution. And you know, I'm not saying that won't be without pain, but I see a path forward, which is wonderful.
Okay, well, great. Well, thank you guys so much. We're doing a series. We want to bring you guys on along with Steve Penny every once in a while to come in the program and talk about this. I think silver is going to be so extremely important going forward. It's going to be the everyday person's money. A lot of people, gold is out of reach right now. It'll especially be out of reach when we get to the reset and what they're going to do with gold in the banking system. So I really think as we move closer to this financial reset, silver is going to become the key critical element in your financial plan, which really for the average person, you know, helps them. And so this roundtable will be with Steve Penny does Silver Chartist. So he's our charting and technical analyst. And this panel will be here until, as long as we can have it, as long as you guys want to come, you know, to help people understand the benefits of silver. And we're just going to keep pressing this point because we really need more people. And this is the point I made with Elijah. I did a recording with Elijah this morning for Liberty and Finance. And we're talking about the system and cryptos and cryptocurrencies and central bank digital currencies. And you know, the point I was making to his audience is going forward, every step you take is critical, and you don't really have a lot of time to make too many mistakes or to think too long about it. I don't think there's a terrible amount of time left. And we all kind of have to band together and as a community and really talk about this as much as we can going forward. And even if I took this video and put it on his channel and every alternative media channel, we're only reaching a few 100,000, maybe a couple million people. There are almost 400 million people in the US and I believe almost 8 billion worldwide. We can't talk about this enough to reach enough people. And really what it depends upon is you guys. So as you guys are watching this at Thanksgiving, maybe mention it to some of your friends and family. And it doesn't have to be the world's ending, go buy 20,000 ounces of silver. It can be, hey, here's a little gift for you. I thought you would like this, you know, coin, this coin that I got from Ark Silver, or this slice that I got from Silverback Precious Metals, and just kind of hand it out. And people ask about it, say, well, you know, this is my long-term savings, you know, just for a rainy day, and do what you can and try to help as many people as possible. Because we can sit here and talk about it on the program all day long, but we need you guys to be the army. We need you to be the foot soldiers and go out there and and evangelize this stuff to help as many people as we can. Because at the end of the day, what Ian was saying about coming to America and realizing the American spirit and the work ethic, this is what we need to do to get people, into honest money. We need to focus on that. And I'll make the last point is we may not have the America that we have now if we don't help enough people. We don't want to get in a situation where people are fighting each other for food. We want to make sure that we have our heads on right when this happens, and we as a community in the United States can go forward making good decisions, not out of fear or out of desperation to feed our families, but decisions, about what our future is going to hold. And first things first, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we need to take care of money so that people can buy groceries and pay their bills, and silver's it, and that's why we're focusing on it. So thanks everybody for joining us for this special Thanksgiving edition. We'll come back and do this probably every couple of weeks, as much as you guys want to join, and I think it'll be helpful people. So again, thank you for joining Ian and Jim, and have a very happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you on the other side.
Thank you, Rob. Yeah, and don't be a turkey. Get some silver.
Thanks.